G'day everyone, I'm Dave, and here's just a little bit of my story. Growing up, there were two things I wanted more than anything. I wanted my friends to like me, and I wanted to be an AFL superstar. Looking back, I think really that's where I was trying to find my significance in life. So what this looked like for me, in year 9, I remember I was training like 3 or 4 times a week. I'd play 3 games of footy on the weekend. And then you'd get to Monday, and some of the times my friends, they'd talk about the weekend and maybe the game of footy and how I played a good game. And at the time, I'd put on my humble face. I'd say, oh, no, it wasn't that good. But deep down, I loved it. I loved that I was good at something, and the fact that people paid attention to me because of it. At the same time, from a young age, my parents taught me about Jesus and the significance of him, but I wasn't really that interested in it. I was more interested in friends and sports. But going along in high school, things started to unravel a little bit here. Around year 9, at the end of year 9, I had a shoulder injury, and so I had to have an operation on that. And I did play footy again, but I just never really got to the same level. So then I moved my attention to other things. I tried to impress my friends in other ways and get their attention in other ways. But the more I did this, the more frustrated I became. I'll give you an example. I remember, it might have been in year 9 or year 10, one of my friends had a secret, but they weren't allowed to share it with me. And it's so silly now, but at the time I just felt so frustrated. And in the end, I punched him in the shoulder and I stormed off. Looking back, I'm really shocked that I do that. I'm actually a pretty, balanced, relaxed guy most of the time, if I do say so myself. And so, yeah, I'm really surprised that would happen to me. But that was the reality. I was just feeling so frustrated. So moving a bit forward then, around the time I got to uni, I started to pay a little bit more attention to Jesus. I joined a group called ES, and that was a place where I could really explore who he is and what he'd done. Now, if you know me, you know that I'm a slow learner. It takes me a little bit of time. But as I looked into Jesus, I also started to understand while my aspirations, they weren't giving me what I wanted. It's because they couldn't. And more than that, they weren't meant to. My deep desire for significance, that could only be met by Jesus. There's this book in the Bible that I love called John. And in it, John says that Jesus, he's the bread of life. And now back in Jesus' time, bread, it wasn't like one of those extras that we have today. For dinner time, they weren't thinking like, I might have Subway or sushi or a slice of toast. If you didn't have bread, you'd go hungry. To have bread was to have life. And the more I've come to know Jesus, his life, his death, his resurrection, the more I've seen that this is true. Jesus is the bread of life. He's the one who gives me life. In him I enjoy a restored relationship with God now and for all eternity. This is where I find my life. It's where I find all my significance. And what's more, it's so great because it liberates all the other areas of life. Sports, friends, other things. I can just enjoy them now for the gifts they are from God, rather than trying to find my identity in them. Because I know, ultimately, who I am in Jesus, I'm a child of God. I dearly love child of God. The other day I was catching up with a mate, just having a coffee, and he's an old mate from school. And when I told him I wasn't playing sports anymore, he looked at me and he said, "Harrow, you've got to play sports, mate. You were made for sports." Now, at the time, a part of me felt that, I thought maybe I should get back into sports. But the more I thought about it, the more I really was okay with it. I'm fine with never meeting those aspirations in sport, or even maybe with friends. Because none of those things, they can ever compete with the life that I have in Jesus, with the significance of being a loved child of God. Thanks for listening. See ya.